Yo. Welcome one, welcome all back to the C.E.D podcast. Shout out to y'all who are returning. Shout out to y'all who are pulling up for the first time. I appreciate every single one of y'all. It is episode 16, I believe. The Sweet 16. As always one of the best. So, you ask me, I think we have a pretty good podcast set up for you guys today. We got some decent stories. Not even decent, pretty good stories, honestly. Good conversation to talk about when it comes to gaming, as well as promised, I promised on my community to talk about my abrupt little week break, as well as talk about something I've never really talked about in public, but I think it's an important conversation. So I think we in for a nice, cool episode for real. As promised, I got my cup of tea right here. We got my chamomile tea this week. So we can get ourselves in that bag, and we're here. So once again, episode 16 of the C.E.D podcast. Let's get into our stories, man. So the first story we have this week is a story that went trending on Twitter. I saw at the top of my list one day this past week of folks talking about it. It seems like a lot of people were, how would I say, if anything, there was a real conversation taking place on the TL or on the trending page, whichever one you want to say it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys may have heard of it. If you haven't, here it is. We're talking about what is his name? I forgot his name. Either way, one of the writers for Days Gone, from memory, his name is John Gervin, actually. There we go, that's the name. John Gervin was on David Jaffe's podcast. For those who don't know about who David Jaffe is, he is the game director of the original God of War. And so he has a podcast. He tends to interview a lot of people in the video game industry and stuff like that. In this particular case, he interviewed John Gervin, a writer for Days Gone. If you don't know about that game, it's a different twist on, I guess, the post-apocalyptic zombie world, something like that. A bit more heavier on, more focused on story, I would say. For those here on the Twitch side, if it ends up winning, the poll down below for the viewer's choice playthrough will end up playing, and you'll get to see what we're talking about here. But why is he in the news? So during this interview, he had a certain take that a lot of people weren't a fan of, apparently. And what he said was, people shouldn't complain, and this is me kind of paraphrasing really, but this is pretty much just what he said. But what he said is, people shouldn't complain if a game doesn't get a sequel if you didn't pay fucking full price for it. Now, originally, when I seen this on a TL, right, and I simply just seen that excerpt of the interview, I'm like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, relax. It sounds kind of pushy out of context. It sounded hella pushy. I'm like, hey, folks no one necessarily has to buy games for real. I took it that route. It seemed like you're just kind of getting pushy to get your game bought, because honestly, Days Gone didn't do as well as it should have, at least what was planned. Days Gone was definitely a game that I would say it seemed like it was being prepared to be up there with the Last of Us-esque games. I'm saying The Last of Us is kind of put into the same kind of world. Of course, two different takes, but the same theme. It was supposed to be kind of up there in the same caliber, but as most folks, if you are pretty avid in the video game community and paying attention, Days Gone didn't do that well. They didn't do bad, but they didn't do it as well as to reach the caliber of something like The Last of Us. Now back to the topic at hand with Mr. Garvin here. like I said, out of context and me just seeing what everyone was talking about on Twitter, I'm kind of like, you seem kind of pushy. So I took it upon myself to actually go to the source themselves and go to this podcast and listen to the interview. Now, my take from it after listening to the context and seeing how he got to that, or not even necessarily seeing how he got to that, seeing his mindset when it comes to Days Gone, and then taking into account that specific quote that he said in that podcast, I would say I mostly agree. Now, I'm gonna put a pin in that real quick. With the context, for those who didn't see the podcast or didn't see the interview, if you were listening to the interview, a lot of questions that he was asked and he answered about Days Gone and stuff like that, which is kind of expected of a writer, you can see that Days Gone is something that is close to his heart. Because just to put it into perspective, for those who don't necessarily know the process of making video games, these video games are being made and written and programmed and stuff like that years before they're even announced. If I remember correctly, on this podcast, which I'll put a link to the podcast down below in the description for you folks on YouTube if you want to check it out yourself. In the podcast, if I remember correctly, he said that they spent 6 years working on Days Gone. So for a creative, working 6 years on a project, damn near every day, because the workload of working to build a video game is no regular workload. So 6 years of thinking of an idea and probably developing, scrap it because it ends up not working, and rinse and repeat until you find that one good formula that works that you want to publish. I could see through the series of questions that he's answering just how much that not only himself but the way that he talked about his team that was working on Days Gone is what they were putting out, as well as the response that they got to announcements, trailers, stuff like that. It seemed like everything were gearing to go way better than they actually did. I'm not gonna go and say that he's probably irritated, but of course a bit disappointed probably, because obviously you spent 6 years, a whole lot of money goes into a whole lot of time, effort, whatever the case may be, and it doesn't become as successful as you would intend it to be. Yeah, you'd be a little disappointed. So I can kind of see his point of view when he says you can't complain about not getting a sequel if you're not buying the game at full price. Because this is kind of where I get into why I mostly agree. We were back to that point. I've talked about it before. When it comes to this industry, and I'm speaking of the video game industry and the way that it moves now, if you want new games to go, if you don't know what I mean by go, I mean by being successful, maybe sparking a series of games, etc., etc. If you want new games to go, you have to support them. That's just what it is, because we're in a video game industry now where it's the companies, the publishers are looking at what works, what is generating revenue, and that's what they're pushing. Now, if we're not supporting new games, new IPs, something different, something more risky, stuff like that, what we used to love about the video game industry, for real, not to say that the video game industry is not still doing that, but the big companies that were used to doing that are not doing it as much these days. So I don't get you confused. Get back to the point. Big companies are about money, right? And especially these days, as big as the video game industry has gotten, these games cost a lot more to make. So of course, in basic business sense, when you invest X amount of dollars, you expect a certain amount of ROI. Once again, for those who don't know what ROI is, return on investment. You want to not only recoup how much you put into the product, but you want to benefit on top of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, sure, whatever. It may be cool to, break even, get the money back that you put into it. But the point of the matter is that you put money into the product to expect to gross something, to get money on top of being recouped what you spent. Now, this is me talking from the business side. When I go to the consumer side, us gamers here, folks are not making the games, but we're playing them. And then what I'm about to say, this is where it starts to get a bit tricky. You know what I'm saying? This is where you can see a lot of people who are in their conversation were picking sides and stuff like that. And this is where a lot of people were butting heads. On top of games costing more to make, the games are getting more expensive. Like, I was not a fan when the announcement came out that like PlayStation games now for like the next gen, or I guess current gen, you can say now, we're getting bumped up to $70 instead of $60. $60 was already a bit, but $70, all right, bro. Now it's like sooner or later these games are about to cost $100 a piece, and it's kind of crazy. So things like PlayStation Plus, which is how Mr. Garvin got to the comment that sparked this news anyway. His David Jaffe was asking about how a lot more eyes are really coming to the game and people are really trying it, because for those who don't know, currently on PlayStation, if you have PlayStation Plus, one of the games in the month is Days Gone. And with that, like even in David Jaffe's comments in the chat, because of course the podcast was live streamed, so I was watching the VOD. So you can even see in the chat about people calling for a sequel for that game. And apparently that's not the first time that Mr. Garvin has heard these comments before. So I can understand of, when the time to support the game and when it really mattered, and when the company was really looking to see if it would make sense as an investment to possibly get a sequel, there weren't as much people there to support it. And yeah, sometimes it's kind of like, I wish you guys were there when it mattered for real. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter now. Whenever you can support a game, I'm sure developers and people who work on the game appreciate it. However, in this case themselves, to encourage companies to invest in a sequel, it's kind of when the game comes out that you'd want the sell numbers to really go up, instead of maybe catching it on sale or everybody playing it on PlayStation Plus. I get it, but for someone like me, like myself personally, who may not necessarily have all that kind of revenue to just expend whenever a game drops, I catch a lot of games on sale, or if they on PlayStation Plus. That's just me. I don't got money to spend like that. So for me, I get to a lot of games pretty late, besides a couple games here and there that maybe I was that interested in and I came to some money, so I went and pre-ordered it. But for the most part, I catch a lot of games on sale in PlayStation Plus. So things like games going up to $70 from where it used to be at $60 brand new, or folks say stuff like Garvin's comment, it's kind of like, well, you know what I'm saying, not everybody has that kind of luxury. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody in the player base as a whole, just across the video game industry, has expendable revenue to just be spending on games on launch. You know what I mean? But at the same time, once again, like I said, from a business aspect, supporting the game at launch is important in order to get a sequel. So for me, I'm kind of a yes and no on this situation. I'm kind of on the fence, because I'm with the gamers, of course, when you say stuff like pay at full price, because not everybody has money to be spending on games all the time like that. So the best thing is to catch a lot of games on sale, or even better, if they end up on PlayStation Plus or Xbox Games with Gold, a program like that, or Game Pass, things like that, where you can save money and play some of the best games is out. But as well as, I'm on the side of the developers, because in order, number one, for them to put food on their table, if we really is gonna call it down packed to the core of the situation as well, these are guys and gals who do this as a job, and yeah, they need to feed their families, as well as to be able to make sequels, or maybe to continue working with these companies, making new IPs, stuff like that, and just getting new IPs in general. Folks have to support it, you know what I mean? You have to support it. It's like right now, if Gotham Knights, right? Gotham Knights is coming out next year. I think there's a genuine interest in that game, right? Say we play this game, and a lot of us will consider this game a great game, right? Which I'm expecting for it to be a great game. Hopefully it is. We never know until we get it next year. But it ends up being a great game. We're enjoying the game. It seems like the story is setting itself up to have space for a sequel. We're excited. But for example, say they put 200 million into that game, right? It launched at $70, and I wish I could do quick maths in my head to try and see if we can recoup it, but then say they end up like in the first month of sales, they end up with like something like 150 mil, right? That it doesn't sound crazy, right? To the regular gamer, well, y'all put a game out and y'all made $150 million off of it. That's great. But the company put 200 million into the game, which means there's $50 million that weren't recouped. So honestly, we're kind of in the negative. In the business sense, that didn't go as successful as I thought it would. So I'm not going to put money in for a sequel. As in, if freaking Last of Us Part 3 comes out and they put 300 million into it, and within the first three weeks you already recouped $400 million, you're way past the positive at that point. Well, yeah, let's keep making that game. You getting what I'm saying here? It's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes. Because I'm sure all my folks here who may be watching on YouTube, those who are live here in the Twitch chat, I'm sure you've had those couple games, those niche games that you played, you've loved them. It's amazing, it's dope, you enjoy the gameplay, that kind of story is your kind of thing, or whatever the case may be, but it's not as popular amongst the whole player base, so that game gets canceled as far as sequels are concerned. And it's like, well, damn. If only this game really got more sequels, I feel like the series would have been lit. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. It's unfortunate, man. It really is. True, perfect example. Sleeping Dogs. I don't know the numbers per se on that game. This is just me talking from a gameplay perspective, because I really enjoyed that game. I've played the game and beat the game multiple times at this point. I think a good 2-3 times. And I'm like, why didn't this game get a sequel? Could have been cool. A lot of great elements here in this game. Why isn't there a sequel? Maybe they didn't recoup the money that they wanted to make on the game when they first released. I don't know. Or maybe the creators just didn't feel like, you know what I'm saying? It's the creators didn't feel like making a sequel, or they didn't have a plan on making a sequel, or whatever the case may be. It's one of those unfortunate things when it comes to gaming. that we all on both sides, as the developers as well as the gamers, have to accept that it's a business, and if the business is not positive for the folks that put money into it, it may not continue. Sometimes it's heartbreaking. So ultimately I kind of agree with him. I can't be mad at it. But yeah, man, it's one of those things. It's just one of those things, bro. Let's catch up with one of these comments that I have here in our live Twitch chat. The homie Voltorian says, however, having said that, or was there an earlier one? Oh, there it wasn't. Let's continue. However, having said that, if the CEO of Activision/Blizzard, Bobby Kotick, can get $10+ million bonuses every year, the argument that the games are too expensive to make starts to fall flat. If you can afford to give the CEO $20 million a year, you're not worried about investment. You're only being a hawk about ROI because you want to maximize profits, not because you're not making a profit. Of course, Activision/Blizzard is one of the worst offenders of overpaying their CEO while simultaneously screwing developers. They lay off so many people as soon as a project is shipped instead of putting them to work on another project. And the $70 price point is also BS. They're making tons of money, absolutely mountains of it. That is a very good point, actually. Very good point, Boltorian. The whole company dynamic in itself is a whole nother layer that it'll take some time to unpack in themselves too. So that might even add another layer of frustration when it comes to developers. Because now that you bring that up too, if you take that into account, that's another thing that developers can't necessarily explain, that consumers may not necessarily see. That he's like, oh, we want to seek it for this game. This game is so great. It's like, well, it's not up to me, unfortunately. It's up to the company head. It's up to the CEO. But the CEO is going to sit here and tell me that they didn't make enough money and they won't invest into it because we don't have the money to invest into it. Yet you're making like $100 million a year alone. That's one guy. There's plenty of people throughout this company. There's a lot of factors when it comes to this. And it's not even just video games as well. Things like movies, TV shows, it's all the same thing, kind of. This is just a business thing, bro. It's just the way people run business these days. It sucks. And unfortunately, until we have, folks in higher places that'll decide to move different, the company operations is not going to change when it comes to because this business model is what's working, and no one else is necessarily refuting it, because the folks that are putting this actual business model into practice are benefiting from it. So it's like, why would I change what's working for me, even though it's something that's supposed to help everybody eat? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot to it, bro. There's a lot to it. But that was definitely interesting. I thought it would be a great conversation, which I think it is a great conversation. If you haven't dropped what you think about this in the comments down below on the YouTube side, or in the live chat here on Twitch, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on it. And let's move on to the next story. This is an update on a story that I gave not too long ago. So apparently, for those who've been watching my podcast not that long ago, I believe I talked about this on my last episode. If it wasn't the last episode, it was 2 episodes ago. This tea, wonderful. 1 or 2 episodes ago, I talked about how the PS3, PS Vita, and PSP PlayStation stores would be shutting down this coming late summer, early fall. Well, update on that story. Apparently, Sony has decided to reverse this decision on 2 of the 3 platforms. So apparently the PS3 and PS Vita stores are going to be staying open. The PSP, unfortunately, is still going to continue to shut down. If I remember the date correctly, I think it's early July. It might be early, mid, or late July, sometime in July, I believe. Besides that, the PS3 and the PS Vita stores will be staying open. I think it's a great thing. Nostalgia, as well as folks who brings it back to that budget thing that I talk about, not necessarily having the revenue to be spending on games and stuff of that nature. For folks that may still be on PS3, who maybe not even have moved up to PS4 yet, let alone moving up to PS5, or folks who still have those systems even after they upgraded, who love going back every now and again to be able to play those classic games, I believe, and made the point of those kinds of audiences and folks of that nature, period, not having that and how bad that'd be. And it seems like Sony realizes that. Speaking of which, CEO Jim Ryan actually explains the original idea they had behind the store shutdowns. So he says, and I'll quote, "When we initially came to the decision to end purchasing the support for PS3 and Vita, it was born out of a number of factors, including commerce support challenges for older devices and the ability for us to focus more of our resources on newer devices where a majority of our gamers are playing on. Upon further reflection, however, it's clear that we made the wrong decision here." I'm gonna pause here before I continue the rest of this. That's important. Company clarity and letting folks know that you made a mistake, I think, is something that all us consumers, me specifically, of course I can't speak for everybody, that's something for me that matters, because it shows consideration for your consumer base, your player base, shows that you care, as well as it shows that you're paying attention to feedback. So I think stuff like that is very, very important when it comes to industry like video games, when you're making, products that you believe your player base likes. So if you're not listening to feedback from them, how would you create? You know what I'm saying? So being able to admit as well as take the steps to reverse the mistake, I think is very, very important. So to continue Jim Ryan's statement here, he says, "We see now that many of you are incredibly passionate about being able to continue purchasing classic games on PS3 and Vita for the foreseeable future, so I'm glad we were able to find a solution to continue operations." Once again, being able to acknowledge something like that, I think, is important. I think a lot of companies need to start practicing that. And this coming from Sony specifically, being that Sony's usually kind of tight-lipped when it comes to anything of their operations, unless they're just announcing games or giving updates on games. I think it's a good step for them. And if anything, I think they just got some brownie points from their player base. I know they got some brownie points from me, man. As well as understanding the strength in your your catalog, because this is something I never understood when it comes to the video game industry, as to why your old catalog of games that have shown profit, they're valuable, people still want to play them even years after the case, decades after the case, and you just lock them away in a vault. You know what I'm saying? I never understood that. I'm like, why not keep the games out? Like, I understand it may take some manpower to possibly keep servers up or be able to support games and stuff of that nature, but even back to the point that Boltorian in the chat made about how CEOs and companies in general are not even really trying to give jobs to developers, on top of you having a bigger catalog that can make you money, because people would still probably buy it. Perfect example, right? Little side note, but it helps the argument. when it comes to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, that originally came out on PS2. Myself personally have rebought that game on multiple platforms at this point. Yeah, 3 platforms. I had it on PS2, I bought it again on PS3, and I currently have it on PS4. So I can finally, and I'm finally gonna actually finish playing through that game, because I never really got to originally here on stream. So a little side note, a little plug, if you want to see me finish off a classic game like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, pull up to twitch.tv/CedrickTheCreator on Saturdays, and you will be able to see that greatness. But either way, old game, PS2 classic, PlayStation 2 classic, and you just got 3 different purchases for me alone, as well as retro game hunting, and just retro hunting period is a thing. There's a whole group of people who travel around to different type of shops, look online, all kinds of stuff, trying to buy these classic consoles or buy these classic games for classic consoles, stuff of that nature. I would think things like that would show promise in your old catalogs, so why lock them away? I know you companies like money. Continue profiting on your old work. I don't see why you wouldn't. Y'all like money so much, keep making it with what you've had before. Repurpose your content, repurpose your product, and keep it going. That's just a little thing for me. I don't know why folks lock stuff away like that, honestly. And back to the point I was making before, with companies not even giving developers the chance to even work on new projects. If you're not going to hire them for new projects, or even give them the chance to work on anything, maybe give them an opportunity to keep up these old games. Or maybe they'll they can make a twist on these old games, and there you go, a slightly new IP, or maybe a continuation of an old series, or whatever the case may be. You can try different things that way. There's options here, man. There's options here. Companies are honestly just consciously deciding not to do this, and to me, I think it's just leaving money on the table. Even though y'all love money as much as y'all do, doing things like increasing games to $70 a pop when it comes to them being new, which is another ridiculous thing, but that's a whole nother conversation in itself. So I think a move like this, with Sony keeping those stores open, keeping those games operational so folks can continue to buy them for the foreseeable future, honestly, I think it's a win-win for everybody. And I think more of these companies should do that. Which is another reason, and I swear, for folks who've been listening to my podcast for as long as I've been doing it, you consider me an Xbox Game Pass fanboy, because I think that literally that's what Game Pass is. It's such a great deal. It's such a great deal. It really comes into a situation like this and benefits off of what you had before that's been working. Introduces old games to new audiences invest in that. That's more money on top of that, as well as it helps the gamers save money and get more bang for their buck. It works for everybody. But I don't know, who's me, right? I'm just a random dude who has a podcast on Twitch and YouTube. That just don't make sense, right? These companies, man. I just don't get it, bro. With that being said, let's go on to the next story, which is interesting. It's a very interesting thing. So this is a new PlayStation patent, since we're already on PlayStation stories. PlayStation has a new patent, right, that they filed for in April 2020, but it got published earlier this month. And it's a system for an AI gamer. Now, let me explain what I mean by AI gamer. So apparently, because I didn't necessarily see the patent itself, The patent details a system where it would create a player profile for you, right? So say you play Batman Arkham Asylum, I'm just throwing some games out, Red Dead 2, Borderlands, and a couple other games, right? If this was a thing, what it'd do is it'd create a player profile based on how you play through those multiple games that you played, and it would create an AI that you can just turn on and it will literally play the game for you. In the case of maybe you're stuck in a part of a game, or maybe you're taking a little food break but you still want to make progress on the game, if this were to be a thing, this AI would take over using your player profile with your style of gaming and would complete it kind of like the way that you would play the game. Now for me, and before I even make that point, they've, even within the patent, they have a potential use of it being used in competitive multiplayer games, which off rip, that's cheating. Like, really? You really doing that? You gonna have an AI, you don't take a little lunch break and have the AI go off and get a 20 kill streak while you eating you a little sandwich? Really? I'm livid. If I'm playing against somebody who got an AI playing, whooping my ass right now, and you on the other side eating your ass a goddamn BurgerFi burger with a smoothie, and I gotta sit here and deal with your AI with my, I'm livid. I might just report you. Like, what? Really? No way. Ain't no way. So I honestly don't even think that you should think about that being in competitive multiplayer games. To keep that part out. Maybe you're doing single player games, whatever the case is. As well as they even talked about this to help out trophy hunters or completionists, for my folks who know, those people out there who 100% games. But of course you would get the little asterisk of it saying that you completed this accomplishment with the help of an AI player profile, or whatever the case is. Now, this patent being published does not mean that they're going to be working on it, but you know what I'm saying, it's a step in the right direction if they decide to develop this. Now, for myself, when I've read this article and reading the details of it, to me, I'm like, what's the point of games then? If that's the case, like, I get the convenience of it and how it would help, whatever, but the point of video games is the interaction between the player and the game, and you immersing within the world, where you immersing within the match and what comes with that. So introducing an AI that just automatically puts in whatever suggestive button combination they believe that you would use, is now that you just playing the system. It's the same thing as a hacker, honestly. I wouldn't say that this AI would be manipulating the system necessarily like a hacker would, but I mean, it's not that far from that realm, honestly, because you're not playing yourself, you're having a system do it for you. I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest fan of it, because like I said, the point of games is to play them, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna watch the game being played, just pull up on Twitch or YouTube and support someone else playing the game. You know what I mean? That's just me. Or that's the reason why there's a pause button. You can pause and go do what you need to do and then come back and play some more. Or here's an idea, this is gonna blow some minds, turn off the shit, go do what you gotta do, and then turn it back on when you have time. Crazy, right? That's a crazy idea, right? Insane. I don't know, all jokes aside, I don't see the place in it, really. I don't see the place in it, really. It's interesting. I'd love to see how it works, honestly. And I'm probably just capping a little bit, because I for sure been stuck in games before and been on one part for like hours, and then it's just literally just a simple thing, and then you sit there and beat yourself up because it's like, what the heck, how did I miss that? And those kinds of situations, the AI would probably kick in and take care of business. But I think part of the fun and part of the enjoyment is having that aha moment and figuring out a puzzle, or having that moment of triumph when you overtake an opponent in a fighting game or a match, or being able to read an opponent's movements for the first time and get that extra kill that you never really seen yourself getting. Stuff like that. I think those add to the magic of playing video games. I think that's why video games has become so successful as an entertainment industry, and just why gamers love games. I think that's just it. I just think that this doesn't help that. That's just my take on it. Once again, those here live on Twitch, let me know what you think in the chat. Those watching on YouTube, let me know what you think in the comments. I just don't see, in the grand scheme of things, what benefit it really brings. I don't know. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way I think about it. So with that being said, let's go on to the last story that we have today. We caught this a little bit earlier today. For those watching after the fact on Friday, this happened yesterday. The Apex Legends Legacy launch trailer launched earlier today. And first and foremost, I think we got a good amount of information from these 3 minutes. For my Apex Legends fans, let's discuss, right? I'm gonna talk about what I got from the trailer. And once again, those on here on Twitch and YouTube, let me know what you think in the live Twitch chat or in the comments down below. Let's have a conversation. It's a great time, man. We're about to go into a new season. Honestly, they're getting closer to season 10, which I honestly feel like they're probably having some big things planned, because it's the big double-digit season, man. You know what I mean? Let me take me some tea. If y'all not in the tea, man, yeah, I'm missing a lot. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Apex Legends trailer, right? First and foremost, for those who've been listening to the streets, if you've been listening to the culture, folks have been talking about this rumor of there being a 3v3 arena mode. I think it was kind of teased in I think it was the 100 million celebration video that they dropped on Twitter. A lot of people were talking about it. A lot of videos were made. This trailer has confirmed it. There are going to be arenas mode coming to Apex. So we're actually going to have a different mode rather than Battle Royale for Apex. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it works with the different legends, with their different abilities, or whatever the case may be. Once again, it's going to be a 3v3 mode, so you don't have to worry about 20 other teams that are coming from all kinds of directions. You don't got to worry about third parties. It's you versus them. Your squad versus they squad. Who's better? Let's do it. I don't know if it's going to be a situation of them planning guns around that you have to go pick up, or what I'm thinking is they're gonna kind of be setting it up kind of like what they had in Call of Duty Modern Warfare for those 2v2 modes, or just kind of like first person shooters period. You'll probably be able to build your own loadout or something like that, I'm assuming. But if that's the case, then I think the gun meta is gonna be running those modes as well. There's gonna be a lot of guns that are not gonna be used in that mode, because obviously they're not doing that well depending on the gun meta, whatever the case is. Like if I'm going with the current gun meta right now, going into that mode being released, I see a lot of people using Spitfires, because once again, it's only 3 other people that you're fighting with the support of your team. I see a lot of Spitfires. I see a lot of R9s, a lot of Volts, if the PK is on the ground, I see a lot of PKs. I'll get to the Peacekeeper in a second. I see some Eva 8s. Definitely see some Wingmans. And probably some Devotions. Or probably not, because I don't know what they're going to be doing with hop-ups when it comes to that mode as well. There's a lot of things that are not necessarily clear yet, but they are going to be dropping a gameplay trailer of Arenas mode on the 26th. So you know for sure that I'm going to be coming back to y'all next week on the next episode of the podcast talking about that trailer as well, to see what we have in store for that, because it could be interesting. It could be interesting. Also, we saw some more of the new legend, the homie Valk, aka Valkyrie, that was announced in the stories from the Outlands a couple days ago. So once again, if you in the cut, if you're in the streets, if you listening to what the folks are saying, man, folks already kind of had her kit figured out, or at least what they think it is, according to some data miners, what data they found in the Apex and on all that kinds of stuff. And from what I've seen in the trailer, once again, if you want to see the trailer, it's going to be in the description. There's going to be a link below. We see Valkyrie, the first time we see Valkyrie in the trailer, she comes flying in, which already what the community and what data miners are saying is, first and foremost, what her passive was going to be. It's kind of like how Pharah is in Overwatch. So you pretty much just hold the jump button and you'll be able to use jetpack, hover, fly, stuff of that nature for a limited time. Obviously you're going to have a fuel gauge, I'm guessing, of some sort that's going to be depleted, and then it'll passively refill itself, like I said, just like Pharah from Overwatch. As well as, after she flies in, she has this missile barrage in the trailer as well, which goes with what the tactical that a lot of folks were talking about was, which is kind of like, I hear it's like a barrage of stun rockets. I'm thinking it's kind of gonna work like Mr. Fitzroy, aka Fuse's Knuckle Buster, which is kind of like just some concussive grenades or whatever the case may be. I'm guessing it's gonna be something like that, I'm assuming. As well as, I might as well just give the full kit to you guys. They have this ultimate where I guess it just shoots her up in the sky, as well as gives her the option to help her teammates fly as well. So I'm guessing that she gets to just fly up in the air, not using any fuel, as well as teammates get to fly in the air for a limited time. I'm assuming that's what it is. But of course, this kit that I'm telling you guys, the abilities and stuff like that, it's not for sure. We won't know until Apex themselves officially announces it. But if I'm going off of what the trailer was, as well as what data miners and what the community has been talking about for a while, it seems like the trailer corroborates and confirms that at least some of the information that we've already had on Valkyrie's kit is kind of correct, which I honestly want to see what jetpack legends are going to do to folks. I know me, I don't have the best aim. Sometimes I laser folks, I ain't gonna say a lie. I put work in, man. I put work in to try and get me some laser aim. I do have it at times. I'm a spotty player. When I'm on, like I go off, like kinda. I say kinda because my biggest amount of kills I've gotten in Apex is 10. You know what I'm saying? I'm not crazy fire like that. I probably average in my career, what, 6 kills maybe. But back to the topic at hand, you kind of have to have decent aim to shoot somebody out of the sky that is able to control where they are in the sky. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Hopefully that made sense. Like, it's one thing to try and shoot somebody who just hit a jump pad, because there's a limited amount of movement that they can do, as compared to someone like when you have Valkyrie, when she'll go up in the air and be able to pretty much have freedom of moving until her fuel obviously runs out. So that's going to be interesting to see how to deal with that. Now, to the point I was making before about the Peacekeeper. So later on in this trailer, there's a scene where they have Ramparts on Sheila just trying to shoot up Octane. Octane gets away, the slippery bastard. He uses his stem, and who was it? Horizon starts to chase him. Which the first time we see Horizon in this trailer, we see her holding the PK and the PK lighting up. Of course, that happens when you have the precision choke on there. And chases him. He thought he was going through an opening. Surprise, it's a Watson gate that knocks him back. Horizon uses the gravity lip and shoots him dead. Now, the reason I brought this up is because, once again, in a community, I'm guessing from some data mining information, apparently, like I said, we won't know until the information comes out officially from Respawn. So as of right now, you take this with a grain of salt. Apparently, the new gun that's going to be in the care package is going to be a triple take sniper rifle. And it's going to be trading places with the Peacekeeper, and the Peacekeeper is coming back to being ground loot, probably for the first time in like, what, 5 seasons? So that's going to be kind of crazy. Obviously, we do not want another situation of the Mastiff, because when the Mastiff first came out of that care package, boy, they barely or didn't even touch the Mastiff. So pretty much you had a care package Mastiff on the ground that you can pick up for free, and people were hurting, myself included. So hopefully, I'm sure that's the plan, but hopefully they rightfully nerf the PK a little bit before they put it on the ground, because no. And for me, from my experience back when it was on the ground, because I've been playing Apex since launch. Literally, I was there when the game launched, and we played day 0, literally. Of course, I missed a couple seasons because of my abrupt hiatus, but that's besides the fact. I've been playing since day 1, low-key. And what made the PK such a pain in the ass, honestly, there's no other way to say it. What made the PK such a pain in the ass was the fact that this shotgun not only did decent damage per burst, but you can literally hurt people, and I mean like devastate people from range with a shotgun, specifically with the precision choke. So what I say is, if this is the PK coming out of the care package and it's becoming ground loot now, on top of you nerfing it, vault the precision choke. You already built in the precision choke into the triple take. The only other gun that used it was the triple take, so the triple take already has the precision choke function built into it now. I did that because the PK wasn't out of the care package anyway, so that was already built into the care package PK. Now that it's coming back on the ground, honestly, just vault the PK, not the PK, vault the precision choke, as well as nerf the damage a little bit. That way, I wouldn't say it should be on par with the EVA 8. If anything, it should be pretty competitive with the Mastiff, being that both of those are pretty much pump shotguns. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to do slightly more damage than the EVA 8, but the EVA 8 has more fire rate. That's kind of how it's supposed to be, really, when it comes to, you know, balancing a class. So hopefully that's what the case is going to be when it comes to that. When it comes to the Peacekeeper, it's going to be pretty fun if it is back on the ground. It's going to be interesting, because I was really getting in my bag with the Peacekeeper right before I went to the care package. It's Octane destroying people, and usually when it comes to these games, every time I get good with something, they take it away from me. I want to cry. I'm going to the corner. Oh my gosh. Which legend buffs and nerfs is going to be another crazy thing too, so when we get to that, we'll get to that. But and the last thing for this trailer is they end it with this simulacrum looking over all the fights that are going on in this trailer. It seems like from some kind of like a surveillance room. And I'm pretty sure, which I'm sure the community probably already knows this, but I'm pretty sure that it's Ash. For folks who've been in the community, we've been talking about this character Ash for probably 3, 4, 5 seasons at this point. People thought like every other season Ash was finally coming out. And being that it seems like, according to the lore, it seems like she's overseeing this arenas mode. I'm sure it's a she, I'm not sure. I'm just going with she for now. Being that it seems like she's overseeing this arenas mode, I think this is their way of setting up Ash to finally come into the roster, probably for season 10. Like I said, season 10, I'm expecting big things to be happening for season 10. So why not do something like introduce a legend that the whole community's been anticipating for 4 or 5 seasons on the big season 10, which is Ash. You know, man, that's just me. As well as, according to the lore, because within the trailer, she does say, "Welcome to the legacy of the apex predators. Welcome to the arenas." If you know some of the lore, Ash was actually part of the Apex Predators, which is a mercenary group that worked for the IMC. Now what the IMC is pretty much the bad guys group that you fight as the protagonist in Titanfall 2. Once again, if you don't know this already, Apex Legends is a Titanfall 2 spin-off battle royale game. And so it's based in the same world, or same universe I should say, of Titanfall 2. So it was that alone that helped me decide, oh, that's Ash. Hence, here we go, finally really seeing her. We're getting ready to put her into the game. I'm excited. I'm interested. I've been playing Apex for too long, so I'm sick and tired of third parties as well as everybody else. So having a 3v3 mode, it really is just putting your wits about you and how you've been playing the game for as long as you have been playing. It should be interesting. I do want to know how the whole gun situation is going to go down, if you get to build loadouts, or if it's everything going to be ground loot, or they randomizing the guns for you. Is it going to be RNG what you get? Because I think they kind of do it like that for the 2v2 mode for Call of Duty. I think I haven't played it in a while, so I don't necessarily remember. So randomizing guns, kind of like a gun game kind of thing, could be cool. It could be cool. Because honestly, without having to touch the guns for that specific mode, I think just giving randomized loadouts would probably be your best bet. You know what I'm saying? So could be interesting. Because then again, back to the randomizing loot thing, because they kind of introduce it with a lot of LTMs that they already done with preset loadouts for certain legends, like when they do the whole King of the Train thing. I don't remember the name of the actual event, but for those who've been playing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When those kind of modes, they already have a pre-made loadout for specific legends and stuff like that, and it seems, and every day they kind of changed it in between legends and stuff like that. So I'm guessing it'll be something kind of like that for the 3v3 mode. I mean, we'll see. I'm excited. Once again, April 26th, they're gonna be dropping a gameplay trailer, or pretty much a trailer giving more information on this arenas mode. So once again, like I said, I'll be back here next week to tell y'all what's going down in there and what my breakdown is. And yeah, as far as all of the news for this week, that is what we got. That's what took my interest this week. I think we had a lot of good news, and the only thing that is left is the CedxTalk for this week. Whew. And the reason I say whew is, if you weren't here earlier during the pre-show in the beginning of the podcast, I did say for CedxTalk this week, it's gonna be something. Do I have more tea? Thank God. It's gonna be something that I've never really talked about publicly before, and because of recent events that's happened with me behind the scenes, I've had to come face to face with it a bit more than usual, which is what caused me to take that week break that I needed to get myself recharged, recalibrated. For folks who've been paying attention for the podcast, that's why we didn't have a podcast last week. and why I didn't really stream last week. And it's something I've dealt with as long as I can remember, probably my whole life for the most part, at least in my memory. And that's inadequacy. If you don't know what I mean by inadequacy, it's having that feeling of not being enough. Now, maybe even just the way I set up this talk here, folks maybe thought I was gonna get into a whole mental health bag. Maybe I have a disorder, whatever the case may be. I don't necessarily have any kind of disorders or whatever the case, but this is a mental health block that I think a lot of people deal with. A lot of people don't necessarily, how would I say it? Don't acknowledge as a problem or an issue. As well as, I don't know if people recognize how much it can affect a person and it affect their life and how they move and the people around them and just etc. That feeling of inadequacy, that feeling of not being enough, whether it's good enough or attractive enough, strong enough, or freaking smart enough, just overall not feeling enough. If depending on the degree of that feeling, it can really affect your whole life, in all honesty. I can only talk about for myself here, because I think it's something that's unique to every person, as most mental health issues are. For myself, it honestly, if it doesn't add, I would say is mostly the reason that a lot of other issues that I have, as far as my personality is concerned, it's either the core or it's added to it. The people pleasing tendencies that I tend to have. Because when it comes to that feeling of inadequacy, it's kind of the that's kind of the reason you really people please, because you want to be seen. You want to see if you can bring value to people. And sometimes, because you don't take into account how other people may be, if people are good, if people are bad, if they're toxic, if they're controlling, if they're etc., that sometimes because of that feeling of inadequacy and that feeling of wanting to be seen and that feeling to be wanna matter, that you disregard those red flags and and it sounds bad, but it's really like the easiest way to explain it, to kind of just be like, look at me, I'm here, I'm not so bad, even though within yourself you feel like you are that bad. I also think it adds to my savior complex. If you know what I mean by savior complex, it's kind of the knight in shining armor kind of thing, where it seems like you go out of your way to try and save everybody and anybody from whatever they may be dealing with, even if it's not warranted or if it doesn't make sense. And I think it's part of me being empathetic is just empathy of knowing what I've been through because of this feeling, and what I've been through in just life in general. and what kind of pain, what kind of thoughts, what kind of just what kind of feelings you'd put yourself through because of what you've been through. So for me, seeing someone else go through that, or potentially about to go through that, it's something I wouldn't want anybody to have to deal with. So I've kind of grown to help as much people as I can with what I have, or what abilities that I have access to, because you don't have to, you don't deserve to go through what I've been through. Hopefully that makes sense. As well as, me being such a perfectionist when it comes to me just doing things. And it's not necessarily how you would think it is, because, you know, things have to be perfect. Things have to be the best that they have to be. It's more of coming from the feeling of, I can't make anything great. This is terrible. I need to try again. I need to make it better. And unfortunately, kind of just putting yourself through that cycle of it never being good enough. So you just keep retrying, or eventually just getting to the point of giving up and just leaving it where it is. Which is probably why myself as a creator hasn't been as productive as I'd like it to be, because of having to deal with this. And as much as it may sound like it's crippling, I've dealt with this pretty much my whole life. So the positive of this is, I think I've definitely gotten better. I used to be such a doormat, and what I mean by doormat is just let people push me around, let people take advantage of me, let people say things about me that may not be true, and just let people do damage to me, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, because I didn't think I was worth the fight. For the folks who know me now, I definitely stand up for what I believe in. I stand up for my morals. I don't let anybody just talk to me any kind of way. And I'm proud of that progress. However, we've come far, but we still have a long way to go. Right? As well as, this feeling sometimes causes you to take things personally that shouldn't be the case at all. I've had friends tell me jokes before, lighthearted jokes, nothing crazy, that'll have me go quiet for a while. Even though I'm in my mind saying, they didn't mean that serious. Like, I don't know why you feel some type of way about it. But it's always that question of, what if they did? What if they're trying to sneak one in and you just are not paying attention? Because you know that people can see how bad you are anyway, as much as you may want to act like you're not. And for no reason at all, a lighthearted joke will plant a seed of negativity for yourself. And maybe your whole day is thrown off now for no reason. It wasn't meant to offend you. It wasn't to hurt you. It was just friends joking around, but because you're not good with yourself, you took that as a slap in the face, And nowadays I've really had to stop myself and really just be like, just understand that it's a joke. It's not a critique of you. Your real friends will straight up just tell you if it was a critique of you. Don't take it too serious. Which I'm proud of myself for getting better at that. But I still have my moments. As well as just going from there, it definitely has depressive tendencies that come with it. If you don't know anything about depressive tendencies, just kind of like depression, but you don't necessarily, I wouldn't even say necessarily, you don't have depression, but once again, there's tendencies. Having those days where you spend the whole day in bed. You don't feel like cleaning your room. You don't feel like taking a shower. You don't feel like eating. You don't feel like moving. Because what's the point? Right? Yeah, I know. It sounded kind of depressing, but hey, it's real. It's real. It's things that we deal with. I've never told someone this before, and it's gotten that bad before. I've spent days where I didn't eat because I didn't believe I deserved to eat. It's gotten that bad before. It's not good. It's not great, but it's happened. It's not a good feeling, bro. Even just this feeling, it's added and probably caused my anxiety attack I've had before. Of kind of that crunch time during finals week where I was studying for a final exam a couple of days before I had to take it. And literally where I'm sitting right now doing this podcast for y'all, I had an anxiety attack. I didn't know that's what it was at the time until I met other people who've had experience with anxiety. The moment of where it seems like all of time stops, your heart is racing, your body is shaking. I was watching my hands quiver before me, shortness of breath, slightly getting slightly getting dizzy, the whole nine for those couple minutes. And I didn't know what was going on, and luckily for me, after a couple minutes it stopped. I know many people who've had their complications with anxiety who have had full-blown attacks that require professional attention. So I'm grateful it didn't get that bad, but at the same time, it's something to get acknowledged, which is why I had to take the break that I took from college this semester. Because when that happened, I definitely told myself that if I did not take a break from college, it might get worse, and that's not something that you want to do. Doesn't matter if you have to be in college longer. Forcing yourself to just keep going through this and potentially risking another and possibly even worse anxiety attack, it's not the move. You do what you have to do for your mental health, regardless of what anybody thinks. that was probably the moment when I knew this feeling, this dealing with the feeling of not feeling good enough or not being enough, period, was something that needed to be dealt with for real. Because since it's not some mental health illness or a disease or something like folks in the medical community would probably call it, it's not like you take something for it. It's not like you can go to the doctor for it. This is something that you have to deal and overcome yourself. And being that I've had to take it upon myself to deal with it, it's affected my relationships across the board. Like my friends, I'm so grateful for the friends that I have now. Very supportive friends, the friends that will fight for you if need be. And when I say that, many people may say, well, if you're real comfortable with your friends, if they really are there to fight for you, etc., why don't you talk to them about this? It's one of those things where, number one, it's not easy to talk about. Even in the space now of mental health being more public and folks talking about mental health awareness, like I said earlier, it's not like this isn't a recorded mental health illness. It's not a thing that you can just take medicine for. And as well as, you don't want to be a burden for the folks that you care about. Because this feeling isn't some light off feeling. Like I said before, this is years and years of fighting. So instead of burdening friends, I'd rather just isolate myself and just work through it to try to get me to a good standing, rather than, once again, burdening friends. But like, it's gotten to the point where I've been more comfortable with losing friends rather than gaining them. Because having good friends is too good to be true. And why do I, of all people, deserve them? This is the kind of thinking that this feeling of inadequacy has you go through on the regular. And seeing friends, succeed at things and having fun with each other, even if you may be in the vicinity, even if they are including you in doing what they should do as friends, and trying to, add you into the positive energy, you sit there and you still have the thoughts of, it must be nice to have fun with friends. It must be great to succeed at something and be able to really enjoy the fruits of your labor. It must be great to be able to smile at yourself in the mirror. because of thoughts like this and feelings like this, I've gotten more comfortable with friends calling me, or folks who I thought were my friends, gaslighting me or calling me outside of my name, or whatever the case may be in that realm. That makes more sense to me, rather than a friend who defends you, or a friend that checks up on you, or a friend that's worried about you. For some reason, that's what's uncomfortable. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. Having girlfriends and believing that this is too good to be true, and that you thinking in the back of your mind that you're waiting for something to pop off. That's a disservice to her. That's a disservice to her time. Especially if she's a good girlfriend. But unfortunately for me, especially my last relationship, it was two people not believing that good things can happen for them. But at least on my side, there is effort put in to work past that. But ultimately, if two people of that nature get together, that's not gonna work out. Shoot, even when it comes to networking, when it comes to doing this content thing, seeing communities that are thriving, or maybe groups of friends talking, and stopping yourself from joining the conversation because you don't believe that you deserve to belong. Thinking you don't deserve to meet new people, because what value are you bringing these people at all? It's this feeling of inadequacy is something that can affect you all around. And the reason I chose to even talk about this is because, number one, being able to talk about it is another step towards progress. And like I said before, on the positive note, the person I used to be when it comes to dealing with this was way worse. Way worse. Like I said before, I used to spend days I didn't eat because I didn't even believe I deserved to eat. At least these days, I have my moments where I believe that I deserve the friends that I have. I deserve the opportunities that I get. I worked for them. I can look at myself in the mirror, because as much as it may not be easy, it's the fact that you're putting in the effort at all to progress that matters. And it should show that you're important enough to do that. As well as practicing mentality to be able to take control, or not necessarily even take control, but being able to mediate and balance the energies that you have to deal with within yourself for whatever reason. Practicing these things has helped me get better with dealing with that feeling of inadequacy, that feeling of not being enough. And to anybody out there who may be listening to this, who may believe that they're not enough, I tell you that the fact that you are still here, you have a reason to be here, you have a purpose. The people who are around you, who are giving you the time of day, don't have to give you the time of day, but they choose to take time out of their lives to spend with you, which should show you that you have value, that you matter, that you are enough. To get over that feeling, it starts with you. And the energy you put out to progress and do better for yourself, others see that energy and can feed into that energy. And it just helps spread that positivity and helps us all just be better versions of ourselves. Whew. With that being said, I think that's a good way to finish off this episode of the podcast. I appreciate every single one of you who may have been listening to me live, those who are taking time out of their lives to listen to any part of this on YouTube. I appreciate y'all once again. If you haven't done it already and you want to see more of the content that I create, in the description down below for my folks on YouTube has all my links, my YouTube channels besides the one that you're on currently, my Twitter, my Instagram. If you want to be part of the community that we are building here, there's a Discord invite link in the description as well. For my folks here on the Twitch side, if you don't know already, we about to have some lunch right afterwards where I sit here and I talk with you guys, as well as right after that we're gonna be hopping into Batman Arkham Asylum to start off the Batman Arkham series playthrough. So it's gonna be a vibe. Once again, I appreciate you all. You stay up. One love. I'll see you next week.